I don't know why I do this to myself. Transformers Revenge of the Fallen is directed by Michael Bay, written by Aaron Kruger, Roberto Orci, and Alex Kurtzman, and stars again Shia LaBeouf, Megan Fox, John Turturro, and featuring the voice of Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime. Now, in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Sam Witwicky is now going off to college, and he wants to kind of separate himself as much as possible from the Autobots. Like, he doesn't want to be part of that whole war anymore. However, the Autobots have to call for his help again when this ancient Decepticon known as the Fallen returns to kind of get his revenge on Earth. Now, I personally consider Revenge of the Fallen as the beginning of the Michael Bay self-parody era. What I mean by this is that all his little, things that he tries to put in there into his movies to make his own, trademark and stuff, this is the point where it started becoming way too much. And I remember watching Revenge of the Fallen back in 2009, and I remember it being alright, kind of meh, but, having good visuals. And then I watched it again, and it's a bad movie. I'm sorry, it's really a bad movie. Like it's so it is pretty much a complete and utter mess, and I don't say that lightly. It really is a mess. First of all, again, it's way too long. All these movies get longer and longer, and this movie is 2.5 hours long. Does not need to be anywhere near that long. Could have been 90 minutes long. And here's my thing with way too long. For me, I'm okay watching a movie like Return of the King, because it uses that running time really well. But when you fill your movie with so many unnecessary scenes, with stupid characters, and really poor attempts at humor, at titillation, and random scenes just meant to show off visual effects, you're doing something wrong. This movie literally does feel like a bunch of random scenes strung together with absolutely no continuity or whatever. And if you pay attention enough to this entire movie until the end, you begin to notice that they do certain things that make absolutely no sense, that come out of nowhere, with the sole purpose of moving the plot along in a completely logical way. This movie has absolutely no adherence to any continuity whatsoever, and at the end of the movie, I really kind of thought to myself, what did I just watch? Like, I couldn't piece together the plot in my mind because there was no coherent plot. The sound design is still good, of course, however, it gets really, really close to being a self parody also, because you know how, like I said in the first movie, it used the organic and mechanical sounds really well together. However, here, I think they kind of overdo it sometimes, like it just gets a bit too crazy. And what's up with all the annoying mini Decepticons with all these human voices? Like what I loved so much about the Decepticon voices in the first movie was that they really did sound like aliens. They sounded like these aliens with a foreign language, and you only had one Decepticon that sounded like someone making robot sounds, which was Frenzy, and that was fine because it fit Frenzy's character. However, here I don't know why they have so many of these annoying high-pitched voices for these Decepticons. And this movie is just saturated with pop songs. Like every single, like there's so many scenes that just use these really out of place pop songs that, do not further the tone or mood in any way. But perhaps my biggest problem with this movie is the fact that nothing happens in this plot. Absolutely nothing happens in this plot. By the end of the movie, you don't feel like anyone has changed. You don't feel like anything has changed. You didn't feel like the world was in peril. And that's one big thing in this movie is that it feels very episodic. It just feels like another installment. What frustrates me so much though is that the first like 5 minutes of this movie set up this thing where Optimus Prime and the other Autobots join the military as this strike team to find and eliminate these Decepticons that are still in hiding, and that premise is so interesting, but they never roll with it. Instead, they go for their big, world-saving thing that doesn't work. And I said in my review for the first Transformers that there were no characters in that movie. There's even less character in this movie. Somehow they managed to take away the personality traits of Sam Witwicky and the soldiers, and they just have nothing with them. They're literally just, cardboard cutouts. And there are way too many useless characters, hogging all the screen time, like Sam Witwicky's parents. Why are they in this movie? They don't need to be in this movie. John Turturro's character, I don't know why he's in the movie. And what's terrible is that they steal the screen time of the Transformers. Like the Transformers themselves, we never get to see them in this movie. This movie is 2 hours of humans and 30 minutes of robots. And Optimus Prime, we never see him in this movie. We never see Bumblebee. They underuse Megatron again so much. Even the Fallen, who is in the title of this movie, we never get to see him that much. And yes, the dialogue is very painful. It's kind of dialogue that sounds like it's trying so hard to be cool, but then you're making these, robots say things that teenagers would say, and it's just so strange. Now about the actors, I actually don't think any of these actors really are bad actors except for maybe Megan Fox. What bothers me is that there's no more enthusiasm in their performances. Like Shia LaBeouf was legitimately funny in the first movie, and now he's just there's no joy in him. They reduced him to just screaming and shouting and running around. And like I mentioned, the supporting characters are so out of place. Not only do they have nothing to do with the story, but they ruin the tone and the mood all the time. Like they're just random comedic characters, and I don't know why they're there. Even the voice actors don't sound very committed at all. Like Peter Cullen, you can almost hear him say like, "I don't want to read these lines." Hugo Weaving, who voices Megatron, he doesn't sound like he's having any fun anymore. And then we get to Michael Bay, and the problem with Michael Bay is that he went the completely opposite direction of where he was heading with the first Transformers movie. I mean, he set it up already pretty well, and all he had to do was follow through with that, but instead he just decides to make the same movie again. He blamed the writer's strike for the bad quality of this movie, but even if you have a bad script, you can direct it, competently. You can try to make something of it, but he doesn't. And all his attempts at humor or emotion or anything, they just die on arrival. Like as soon as you see him starting to make a joke or whatever, it's just terrible. And for some reason, he filmed the action so poorly in this movie. Like even when the Transformers fight, it's so incoherent. You don't know what's happening on screen. The only thing I will say as a positive to this movie, which I will never deny, is that the visual effects are still very, very good. They're very detailed. They're almost photorealistic. They blend in well with the background, especially this new Decepticon, Devastator, I think is his name. He's the one that's made up of all these other Decepticons, and it was great to see that on screen. Like it's really, really a feast for the eyes. However, great visuals don't make a good movie, and this movie is a bad movie. It's a very bad movie. And I actually don't even think it's fun to watch, and that's like the least you could do. Just make it entertaining in a brainless way, but it's not even fun to watch. And the worst thing about Michael Bay is that you think he'd learn from this experience, but greed compels people. Alright guys, that is my review of Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. Have you guys seen it? What do you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.